Motion passed, I believe. Okay, number 6. Martha T. Berry, presentation, monthly report, Kevin Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Good afternoon. Just a quick update on some numbers for us. Our occupancy still remains low, around 89%. It was up around 95% in 2016, but it's still roughly better than 8% of the rest of the county. It turns out that's also better than the rest of the country as well. I shared a snippet from McKnight's long-term care news that shows that this is a national issue. Skilled nursing facilities occupancy dropped to 81.7 across the country, and they expect it to stay low for a number of years. A lot of that has to do with a number of programs that are looking to divert people away from nursing homes, trying to get them home as much as possible. I'm going to move ahead one other slide just to show you what's happening with population. I received this from Plant Moran, and it shows that when the programs first started, there were about 5.6 caregivers and or taxpayers for every one Medicare resident. And you see we're right at that, past that tipping point where we have more people going in than are actually providing taxes. But we also have an issue with talent coming into the market. Our nursing staff is really is the biggest challenge, the nursing crisis. I'm sure you've heard that the nursing crisis is pretty significant. We have more people retiring from nursing than are coming in. And there's a number of reasons for that. I won't get into the macroeconomics on that, but what we're doing right now to help with that is we've renegotiated our agency contracts to do what's called temp to hire. We have a number of nurses that we have right now on contract that after they work 1,000 hours with us, we can offer them a position and they can accept that without penalty from the agency. We also began a tuition reimbursement program for our LPNs to go to RNs, and as well as our CNAs to go to LPNs and RNs as well. That's been very well received just in the few months. Our marketing and our recruiting has been very successful on the CNA side, which is unusual in the market. For the last 2 months, I'm proud to say that we've had no agency in there, and that's the first time in recent memory, according to the staff, at least 6 or 7 years that there was no CNA agency that we had in there. It's our own, taking care of our own. I contribute that to actually treating people correctly in the building as a big factor in that. We are holding people accountable consistently, and we trained our managers how to be good managers. So that retains good people. Our turnover when I first got there was over 70%, and we're in the 30s right now. I expect it to continue to drop. Current projects that we're working on, as we talked about before, the generator engineering study is almost complete. That is to replace our generators, which were original, 2 of them of the 4 which are original to the building, with a whole generator that manages the entire building. So we're looking at that. Door access control, that's security that helps with a number of things for security for our residents as well as for our staff from the outside, part of the active shooter requirements, making sure that our building is secure as well. Our call light system is slated to start either first quarter or beginning of the second quarter latest. That's the one I think I shared with you that the last time I had parts, I had to buy them on eBay because it is obsolete. So the biggest thing that we're working on right now is our kitchen and dining renovation. The design, we had design documents completed. We're finalizing our pricing on that with our construction manager. Because construction is actually a little bit firmer than when we first started the conversation, the prices are a little bit more than what we expected them to be. We're looking around $3 million. It's going to be 3.2 right now. We're looking to see if we can't shrink that to keep that inside what we originally wanted to get to. We'll have more on that each month as I talk as I talk with them. Our video monitoring upgrade, the design is complete, and they just started this week. They started actually putting the wiring in. Our goal on that, we're working actually with the same organization that put together the jail and Comtech. So they'll have access to our systems if they need them. They can simply log on and have access to our external ones with a password. They can get inside our building if they need to. The goal is just to create a safer community, and it'll be a lot easier to do when we have the same platform that they have. The last thing I want to talk to you about, and I have a few pictures to show you, is a badly needed refresh is underway for the entire building. Now, before I get into this, just want you to know that we do have the money available for us to do that. When I first got there, we had about $600,000 in available capital to us. We had about $1.5 million in debt and $2.2 million in cash. We're now up just around $8 million, in large part to the group, to what the county did a few years ago in pre-funding the OPEB and pension liabilities. We've got some of that money coming back from the federal government through what's called the Certified Public Expenditure, and that's given us some cash in our account to be able to reinvest in the county's building, essentially. So as we move ahead, we're looking at over the next 5 years doing about $7 million in property and equipment upgrades to the county building. Starting here, if you notice, there's a mix match of chairs, and you'll notice the nearest one there, the kind of purple pattern there, we actually got donated to us by F&O. That isn't actually a good one for the residents because it isn't water resistant, so we had to spray them down, Scotchgard, to help with that. But there was a lot of folding chairs that our residents were sitting on first. So the first thing that I did was start testing some chairs that we have for our residents. Our residents love these, and we're ordering those throughout the facility as you move on. So seating for residents is quite important. When we had folding chairs actually for our dining residents, those residents were sitting in a chair without arms, and some of them are unstable. So having armchairs there for them really helps them, their stability and their confidence when they're eating. So that was the first thing that I did this year. The second thing is, if you see here, these are just a couple of quick shots of our staff chairs. They were actually in with our conference rooms, in their meeting rooms, in the nurses' stations, and they were pretty well worn and broken up and difficult to sit in, not helping their posture. So we did some testing with our staff and came up with this final selection. The one on the left is a day chair. The one on the right is a conference room chair with affixed arms. A little less expensive, but it still has the same comfort and seating. Let's go ahead and move ahead. Here's another chair that we're using for the residents for their comfort. It just looks a little bit nicer too, feels more home-like, and as opposed to a folding chair or some of the big Jerry chairs that you see. And you see that in actually with a finished floor. We hadn't put the Cove base on behind it, but you'll see it's quite a nice upgrade. You'll see here that we're also changing some of the color schemes. That color that you see on the back of this wall was on every wall in the building, and we just needed to do a refresh for our residents' benefit as well as our staff and our family members. So that's that same room renovated. The chairs that you see there actually were one set of resident chairs that were being used for dining that we pulled out when we got the new chairs. We put them in there because they were more comfortable than the metal unpadded chairs that they were using in the conference rooms when they met with family members. So here you see the new staff chair, but the picture that you see here is actually in the newest section, nurses station. And you can see how badly we need to upgrade and repair the formica, and the flooring was just in really bad shape. We did a test in one of the nurses stations on fit and finish of products, and that's what it looks like now. So we'll be using these products and we'll be using that color scheme throughout the building to give it a nice facelift. You see the flooring there compared to the flooring that you see in the background in the hallway, which you know was the thing in the in the 80s. Okay, well, trying to be nice. But you see the difference there. We're doing an upgrade. I already received a very nice letter from a family member thanking me for the changes that we've begun to make as well. And I included that in the board packet recently for our board. That's all I have for you, Mr.
All right,
Chair.
thank you, Kevin. Before any comments or questions, do we have a motion to receive and file? We have a motion by Myjack, support by Sauger. Comments or questions? Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Kev. Over here. The generator, the all-purpose generator, what's the cost of that?
We don't know yet because they were doing the analysis to see what we need. We have a total of 4 generators, and we're not sure if we're going to put in one for the entire building, or if we're going to have one that'll augment 2 of them that we have, and use it to do a step up. If we do it whole building, it would probably be between $600,000 and $700,000. We have $600,000 budgeted right now for 2019 for that. But the good news is we have double redundancy already. We're on the same trunk as the jail, which is required to have 2 independent power lines coming in and through there. So if one fails completely, they have another one that's there before they go to the generator. So we're on that same line. However, we are required to have generators in our building as well.
How old are those generators we have now?
I'm sorry?
How old are those generators we have now?
The 2 we're looking at replacing are 60 years old.
Still young. I mean, they're my age and Marv, your age, it's young.
It's the new 30.
The chairs that you want to put in, individual cost? Patient chairs, staff chair?
The staff chairs are right around $220 a piece. The resident chairs are $260 a piece. And the reason I like those is they're not wood, and each of the armchairs as well as the seat are replaceable themselves. So instead of having to, if you have a damaged arm or seat, you can replace those. It's significantly less expensive.
Both sound reasonable to me. Thank you, Chair. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kevin. Regarding the issue of capacity, I'm just curious. You mentioned that there's sort of a widespread issue of a little bit lower capacities as a result of programs that are keeping more folks in their own homes or with relatives or other programs. Is that, I recognize that's a substantial reason, but is there any other reasons for, is there capacity, is there building of more of facilities? Is there like a facility boom or something that's also?
That's a great question. There are a number of factors. A number of assisted living and independent living say that you can still stay there and they bring in services. That's something that's happening. I don't know if you recall in the late 70s, there was something called a basic nursing facility, basic, intermediate, and skilled. And it's much like our version of independent with some services, assisted living. The difference was those were all regulated. And when the federal government decided to make all of it skilled because they saw that aging in place was happening and they needed to have the highest level, it was the introduction of non-licensed buildings. So many of the assisted living that call themselves nursing homes are actually unlicensed in the state. So yes, the boom is happening. It's also it's also the programs that they're looking at doing. There's waiver programs that are happening as well. But you know, to continue on with that point, I think they're all needed. If you don't mind me going back to the slide that showed some of the capacity or some of the growth, you saw the silver tsunami. Probably didn't recall it. Right there. And you see this, that uptick there. I don't have the pointer there, right? So you see this uptick right here. This actually is going to be happening in just a couple of years. You see it's kind of a pretty significantly consistent line there. But right here, from essentially about 2022 on, we're going to have a significant increase in those that are in Medicare programs and also that require skilled type care. So even though there are no new buildings going up for skilled care at all, there are a number of assisted living and PACE programs and waiver programs that are happening that will help with that. I will tell you, though, that the majority of those are going to the for-profit private pay and the Medicare side. And the need for the Medicaid program for us, for what we do, will be incredibly important over the next 10 years in the county, in my view.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next, we have Commissioner Caravelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. Couple questions. To be sustainable and continue to be self-sufficient, what percentage beds needed to be filled to achieve that?
Well, there's a longer question than that, because it's more than just capacity. It's also about how we fund. It's about different revenue streams too. So right now, let me back up. When I first got there, it took 205 residents to be break even. We have done a number of things, and our revenue has increased, again, because of the CPE, so that at the beginning of 2017, we needed to be right around 202, and now we can be break even at 194.
Okay.
So which is about a 90% capacity.
Okay.
So we're looking at a number of things. Marketing, we're looking at different revenue streams, and we're also looking at different opportunities of working together. So those are a number of ways that we're doing that. Also, we're going to be looking at reducing our out-of-pocket costs in other ways. After this meeting, I'm going to be visiting with the finance department to talk to them about a couple of possibilities. Hopefully, we'll have some more information on that in the next month or two.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to commend yourself of taking the challenge for this facility. My concern is I appreciate the efficiencies that have been created to drive down the costs, which in turn lowers the percentage of beds to be filled. But at the current fill rate of 81.7%.
88. It's about 89% right now. Oh, the 81% is national average.
Okay, so
And the county average actually is about 80, 81, 82.
you're fluttering on breaking even.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Then that's where we'll start. We're fluttering on breaking even.
Mm-hmm.
I was on this board when we were given tens of $1 million supplementing Martha T. Berry.
Mm-hmm.
And thank the Lord, yourself and some good people came in and they tried to turn it around. You guys are, like I said, I commend you for doing a good job of improving efficiencies and taking care of the problems over there. But I stand fast of taking any tax dollars now or in the future out of the general fund to subsidize Martha T. Berry. So my question for you is that if you take a long-term 5-year snapshot, are we going to be able to obtain the percentage of residents to break even?
Yes. My job is to make sure that no money comes out of the general fund for that. There were also some things that have happened, and until I have more information, I don't want to share it here, but I want to talk about with the finance department about some things that actually are taking money out of Martha T. Berry now that are not helping, and I'm not sure if they do help the county or not. I knew at the time they were, but it'd be more beneficial for us to have them on our books. So I want to talk with them before that, because then we can really actually move ahead positively in that way.
Great.
We have two major areas that are our big concerns. That is the ongoing pension OPEB liability, and also paying off the debt on our portion of the very large bond that happened, which will end in 2022. That will be a huge help from a literal cash standpoint to help us moving ahead.
Okay. And then the last question I have for you, cash on hand.
Mm-hmm.
restrictions, what is that to be used for?
Any cash that comes in, it's a one-way swinging gate when you have Medicare or Medicaid.
Let me rebundle that question in a
Okay.
different way. There was a lawsuit. Did we receive those funds from that one lawsuit? From the state, money coming?
Yes, we did. We had about $932,000 in.
And those funds are restricted for what type of use?
We're using those as part of the capital improvement. So that is part of the $8 million that's in the bank account right now.
And again, I'm not an accountant. Do we want to set a reserve aside, maybe that $900,000 to, in case something, coming up, might be a little short one year, so we have funds to subsidize if we need to?
That's a great question, and that's actually what I'm going to be approaching finance about today.
Okay, great. Then I don't want to dig any deeper. I'm nervous. I know you guys are doing a great job. Again, I've seen it when it wasn't good, and I know I think the rest of the commissioners on the next report in the agenda will get an idea of how many gray hairs or whatever we want to call the population coming up.
Very careful what you say next.
I know that's going to grow. I know the competition. I know that there's a lot of things driving, okay? I'm pleasantly surprised on how well you guys have managed this, but I'm also very cautious when we're breaking even on the bed, the beds, the heads in the beds, and at the end of the day, if we're not even, and that big pot at the end of the day is not going to be available as long as I'm here, and as long as I can get anybody to agree with me of taking tax dollars out again. So I'll stop there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. You bring up a very, very good point, and I hope you take Commissioner Carabilli's comments very seriously.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
We were both here when I think the last time it was $8 million that Martha T. wanted, and then all of a sudden everybody went, wait a minute. And if you're fluttering on break even at under 200 beds full, that's really pretty impressive for the time frame and so on and so forth. So I'm looking forward to hearing about your successes. It's a really tough job, and I commend you for taking it on and doing what you've done so far. Well done.
That's my privilege to serve. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and support. This is a receive and file. Please vote. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.